Good morning, Park Avenue. I hope you all have a wonderful time in your small groups discussing the sermon today. Today, we talked about 1 Samuel 30 and David just after he left being with the Philistine army. And kind of a couple things that stood out are that, like, he comes back, their world is turned upside down, their families are taken away, their possessions burned, and they had no clue what to do. And everyone's turning on David and making him, they're like contemplating killing him. And it must have been an incredibly difficult and overwhelming time as a leader, and would have been easy to figure that maybe these guys are right. And David's not necessarily been doing wrong, but I guess a little bit. But he's like slowly starting to wander, and it seems like he's more and more doing kind of just what he sees as best, rather than looking to God and depending on him and trusting in him. So like we see that with him running to Philistia in the first place. He doesn't trust that God will always protect him. We see that in him lying to the king when they're raiding about who they're raiding. We see that. So last week, and when the king says, David, I know you've always been honest with me, when we know that's not true at all. In fact, David's been mostly dishonest with him. And just so like a lot of these little things are creeping in, like, and you kind of wonder, like, is David going to go the same way as Saul? Is he going to just slowly drift away and just do what he thinks is right, and try to view God in a way that, God, I just need you to do the things that I want you to do, and kind of use you as like a genie to control my circumstances and get what I want. But thankfully, David like takes the situation and turns his heart to the Lord, and he's overwhelmed, doesn't know what to do. But David strengthened himself in God. And so my hope is that we would have that same attitude, that when even if we haven't been following God like we know we should be, and we would not just feel like we need to like make up for that, but that we would turn to him and recognize, like, God, you are good, and remind ourselves of the promises that he's made, remind ourselves of what he's done for us, and renew our strength in him and not in our own strength or what we think is right, but to look to him and trust that he is good and that he will lead us through. And we see they leave, or they talk to God, and God says that you'll recover everything. So they go, they defeat them, they come back, but along the way, David is generous and kind to this stranger they find in the desert, and they feed him without knowing if he'll help them or not. And then on their way back, there's the 200 men who just are too tired to keep going and too tired to continue and save their family. And the rest of his army is like, well, let's just kick him out and give them their family and say goodbye, because you are the weaklings. You can't just mooch off of us. And David's like, they're called wicked and evil people for that attitude. And David says, guys, I didn't do this. God is the one who has given us all this good things. How can we take what God has given us like it's ours, like we've done it ourselves? Like, we need to be generous with what God has given us. I just think of, like, in our own lives, we need to be generous with what God has given us, because we didn't do it. And also, that also shows what we believe of God. Like, if we think that he's just going to stop giving us good things, and we need to hold on to these good things that we have because maybe this will be the last one, what does that say of our view of God? But if we trust that God is good and loves his children, us, loves to bless us, then of course we can be generous with what he's given us, because we know, well, it's just going to keep coming, because that's who my Father is. So I hope that you have a wonderful time discussing these things, and that you're encouraged, and that you find your strength in the Lord.